Hello, I am Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be reviewing Yog-Sothoth, who is coming to North America with the next Godfest. So, Yog is a brand new 6-star Godfest exclusive, and they certainly push the envelope of power creep. Now, while most high multiplier leaders have challenging to activate requirements, they need to make, say, many combos, hit specific colors, do fancy hurdles, jump through various hoops, but Yog only needs to make 2 light combos. And with 2 light combos, you do 324 times damage when you're above 80% health, along with 43% damage reduction. The 2 combo meta may make a comeback or a resurfacing or just a debut in general, because this is incredibly easy to use and you can deal explosive amounts of damage and pretty much just waltz your way through most things. So, presently speaking, leaders like Anubis, Kushinati Hime, and things in general paired of Diablos are very powerful, but they require effort and somewhat puzzling skills, whereas Yog will be straightforward. So maybe this is a step back, obviously away from the combo meta, but it's going to be making the life very easy for the average player. So this article and video will be discussing the pros and cons, where you can use them, and some general team building advice for Yog. So at a glance, Yog has 1100 weighted stats, which is massive, and it's amazing because all reincarnated cards have 1000, so he's definitely on the higher end of even those cards, highest of all the Godfest exclusives, I believe, at this point in time. Furthermore, he has beneficial awakenings, he's got double skill boost, bind immunity, but he has this co-op awakening, and that's going to be huge because that provides you with 50% more stats. And that's the main idea. Gung-Ho really loves to push co-op, so sticking co-op boost on a high stat card means you're going to be dealing amazing amounts of damage. Their active skill changes the entire board to light and hearts while recovering 40% maximum health and a 4-turn bind clear on a 13-turn cooldown. His leader skill provides 6 times attack when health is greater than 80% and 2.5 times when HP is less than 80. Furthermore, you get 3 times attack in addition to that, and 25% damage reduction when you match 2 sets of light combos. So that translates into 324 times attack and 43.75% damage reduction. That's an incredible leader skill for very little effort. So, as a quick overview, what are the pros and cons? The pros are they're a bind immune leader while also having bind clearing capabilities through their active skill. They have 324 times attack for a mono-color team, which means you can dish out spectacular amounts of damage because your damage is not diluted in any way, shape, or form. And 2 combo Yogs may honestly become a thing because you don't really need to have that much puzzling skills to a certain extent. Match 2 combos, you basically shit on everything else. You have 43.75% damage reduction, which basically will help you stay above 80% health for your activation threshold. It will protect you from preemptives. It will also allow you to basically have a larger health pool effectively, because with those weighted stats along with the co-op multiplier, especially in 2-player mode, it's going to be very hard to actually knock you out of this 80% threshold. Obviously in solo mode it's going to be a little easier, but even so you're going to have large amounts of health. Has a very low skill cap, very easy to play. They have very flexible team building because not only are they quite gentle from an orb hungry point of view, you only need 2 light combos, so thus 6 light orbs, which could potentially be a given board. But because your damage is so high, you have a lot of flexibility in your team building. You don't have to stack pure orb changers like other monocolor teams. You can bring more utility actives, and you can even bring cards that are off color if you need to have specific awakenings or a base cooldown that comes up at a much faster rate. Their base active skill is, in all honesty, one of the best, or if not the best active skill in the game from a pure value point of view, which I'll elaborate soon enough. And again, I want to stress that 1100 weighted stats with co-op boost means they are gigantically powerful. Like that 6,200 health is multiplied, their attack is multiplied. Like, it's just huge amounts of everything valuable. In terms of cons, they are 6-star Godfest exclusive. That's a con, provided you have limited resources. For players who have lots of resources, you can acquire them somewhat easily. They have a lack of damage control because you go from 36 times with 0 light combos all the way up to 324 with no middle ground. it's very hard to control your damage. Yes, you can get your health down below 80%, but even so, it's not that much damage control. So that is probably his biggest downside, along with this HP conditional multiplier. However, with careful planning, you can easily circumnavigate and overcome this HP threshold. Furthermore, because their base active skill recovers 40% of your maximum health, you have built-in self-healing with their active skill as well as a board changer. But because of all that, you can't really stall, because let's say you're doing a challenging encounter that hits very hard. You can't stall because A, you're not going to have your damage mitigation, because when you match your 2 light combos, you blow things up. And you're also going to have issues with recovery to a certain extent, because Yogg does have naturally low recovery, and some of the more ideal subs you want to bring also have low recovery, so healing can be problematic, so that is just the main drawbacks. But to be honest, these are relatively small cons in the grand scheme of things from a powerful leader point of view. So I just want to elaborate a bit more on these pros and cons, and I want to really just compare how powerful Yogg is compared to traditional monocolor glass cannon teams. So I'd say Sarasvati is one of the more powerful monocolored glass cannon teams available. She's what I've been using for the past almost a year now, actually, for certain content where you need to pump out large amounts of damage and not have to worry about too much mechanics, because she does have 100 times damage while being able to stack rows, but you have to match 3 water combos. By comparison, Yogg needs 2 light combos, so 6 versus 9 orbs, for over 3 times damage. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, the rate of power creep is so strong with Yogg. Like, it's not even fair. Like, 6 orbs and you blow everything up in the game while having damage reduction. So Yogg is just incredible because you can use him obviously like a glass cannon leader, but you have a defensive multiplier component. You can tank very large preemptives. You have high base health, so thus high natural health on your own, and you can clear endgame content with relative ease. Now, obviously, if you take damage, that 56 times attack is less than stellar, but in all honesty, 56 times damage is still quite reasonable. But with 2 Yogg-based active skills, you should be able to heal up enough, or even sweep a floor while healing and have full health for the next one. Like, there's lots of ways to overcome it. Like, you can definitely overcome the health threshold. So I feel that Yogg does definitely have the damage output, hands down. Furthermore, that damage mitigation shield does carry over on a sweep. So say you kill floor 1, that shield will protect you from floor 2's preemptive. So that is going to have a meaningful impact, because let's say there's a 10,000 damage preemptive, you're reducing it down to 5,700. You're probably not going to be out of your 80% threshold at that point, so that is a very powerful aspect. And that means on floor 2, you match 2 light combos and heal at the same time. You're back to full health. You can tank another preemptive, or you can even dance around if necessary. So it's a very powerful card all around, especially with that co-op boost awakening and even more health for more stats. Now, in terms of their base active skill, it is probably the best value active skill of anything in the game, presently speaking, because most bi-elemental, which they're really bi-color because they don't produce hard orbs, orb changers or board changers will give you a 12 turn cooldown while producing 2 colors that don't include hearts. So Yogg just including hearts is already better value, because yes, you add 1 turn of cooldown, but that means you can have the ability to heal and deal damage. And if we stopped right there, this would have been still a great active skill. However, Gung Ho wants to make this a really power creeped card, so they add in 40% maximum health heal and 4 turn bind recovery alongside of what was already an efficient board changer. So from a pure value point of view, you've got aspects of like Amaterasu, a Sonya or Ilm, while having more hard orbs present, and you're losing the haste from Amaterasu, but even so, incredibly powerful active skill. Like, it's just unbelievable. Like, you would never inherit anything over top except for skill delay protection. Like, it's just unbelievable for the most part. So with that base active skill, that allows you to have perfect synergy with your leader skill. You are able to basically heal up to a certain health threshold, because in theory, unless you're basically dead, you can always heal up enough. Like 2 Yogg actives in theory is wasteful, but it will always heal you enough because you would have survived, so you're above 80% health. So obviously any card has to have some drawbacks, but in all honesty, Yogg's drawbacks or cons are small to say the least. So the biggest hurdle is obviously this health threshold multiplier combined with the inability to stall efficiently, because if you want to stall and gain damage reduction, you have to basically match 2 light combos and blow things up. So stalling is not necessarily a feasible option while also having a lack of damage control. Furthermore, when you want to basically heal up, you may have low recovery because, generally speaking, cards like Orpherean and Ilm, who are desirable subs, have naturally low recovery. Obviously, you can customize your team accordingly, but it's just a small thing to keep in the back of your mind that healing may be a little challenging. However, in terms of damage control, it's becoming less and less relevant because we do have numerous Fujin-style active skills, so we can obviously ignore those absorption mechanics from Hera Dragon, Vishnu, Sopdet. However, in the future, we are going to have a new awakening that allows you to void, damage voids. So things like Noah Dragon, Zeus Dragon, Gaia Dragon, they no longer have these powerful damage voiding mechanics because you can simply overcome by making a 3x3 box. So lots of power and potential you have, obviously, when those cards come to North America, so the lack of damage control becomes less of a liability in the future. However, one thing you have to keep in mind is because you can't stall as efficiently, you need to be conscious of your skill boosts. So that's why cards like Orpherean and even Wukong are very desirable because of 3 skill boosts. However, if all else fails, we can use Whale Doors who have 5 skill boosts, and when those gorillas come to North America, it's going to be much easier to acquire dupes, awakenings, and skill ups. Now, even with all those minor drawbacks, they do have relatively easy counters, like the damage absorb, damage voids will have counters in the future. The health threshold is technically countered by Yog's base active skill, and in all honesty, if you can find a floor that doesn't have too much health, you can use, like, say, a DQ/XQ style active skill. You get double light comboed for the damage of 56 times, you get heal herbs, back to full health, sweep the floor, you're fine moving forward. That sort of idea. So where can we use Yog, presently speaking? So not only does he have the capacity to deal amazing amounts of damage, but you can use him as an endgame leader to clear content like Cosmic Trinity and Arena 3. Now, obviously the leader skill does restrict you from certain dungeons with very large preemptives that will take you out of the 80% threshold on a repeated basis, or anytime you need to dance or do any sort of weird mechanics on a certain floor, just because of the way your leader skill works. I guess in theory you could somewhat stall a little bit, but it's not that efficient. However, because of all that, you are able to bring interesting counters because you do have the built-in healing from Yog, so you don't have to worry about the health threshold as much. So it becomes an issue of how can we overcome resolves and how can we dance around certain floors. So with resolves, we now have access to follow-up attack awakening. We are going to gain the Norns, so basically Erd, Verdandi, and Skull evolutions, which will give greater accessibility to follow-up attack awakening. So with that, we can overcome resolves because we use Yog's base active skill. You make the Column of Hearts, you make light combos, things die and blow up. So your life is a little happier. For challenging other encounters, you can naturally bring either shields, delays, or even just rely on Yog's base active skill to heal yourself up. But again, once we have more access to like the Fujin style actives or even the damage void actives, things become significantly easier. But basically, long story short, where you cannot use Yog is basically any dungeon with excessive amounts of preemptives, or where you need to dance around on floors repeatedly and it takes you out of your health threshold multiplier. So team building for Yog. Now, Yog is a monocolor leader by nature. However, we don't have to team build him like monocolor teams of the past. This is because his damage output is dramatically higher, so you have more than enough damage with only 2 light combos. So that means you don't have to use orb changers as readily because, again, he has a lower orb count requirement for activation. So unlike, say, cards like Krishna where you want to, say, someone has 12 fire orbs, you can easily get 6 light orbs from a given board and blow things up. So orb changes have less priority. Furthermore, because your damage output is so high, you don't have to stack TPA, Rose, or Orb Enhanced Awakenings. You can just organically rely on a regular board, non-enhanced sets of 3 matches. Furthermore, again, because the damage is so high, we don't have to restrict ourselves to mono light subs. You can have other colored cards if they bring required utility or counters to specific dungeon mechanics. So, for example, in Cosmic Trinity, there is the potential to arrive on the boss floor after only 2 of your turns, because every player takes 2 turns, that's 6 floors, thus boss floor 7. So, in theory, there may be no stalling. Like, that's an extreme scenario. So, the priority would become bringing enough skill boosts to have the key active skills available. Now, Cards, like I said, Wukong and Orpherean are desirable for that reason because they do possess 3 each. However, Orpherean does become more valuable because their base cooldown is lower while also being bind immune. So you can build a safer team with duplicate Orpherean cards. Now, obviously not everyone has Orphereans, but you have to use creative team building. Like, again, in the future, we will have Whale Doors, and Whale Door does have a light sub-attribute, so Whale Door can actually deal modest amounts of damage while having 5 skill boosts. However, their other noteworthy subs are Ilm or Ilmina, because they have that nice bi-elemental board changer along with desirable awakenings and desirable stats. So basically, the main takeaway point of team building Yogg is it's flexible. There's no ideal or perfect team. It's a matter of just putting in cards that can counter the dungeon mechanics. Like, the whole idea of having ideal teams is misleading sometimes because it will prevent players from either necessarily using leaders or even exerting their own creativity, because if you think, I don't have the ideal team, I can't use the leader. Well, that's not always true, because again, with a leader as flexible as Yogg, use what you have available and counter what is present in the dungeon. For example, if there are resolved bosses, throw in something like the future Norns, like Erd Verdandi's Skald for that follow-up attack. They're off color, but you have enough damage. Use Yogg's base active, the Column of Light, things die. And again, worst comes to worst, we can have Whale Door in the future. So, in conclusion, Yogg is an incredibly powerful card that does definitely push the envelope of power creep. His leadership potential is unbelievable because you have amazing damage, you have very little drawbacks because he naturally counters the health threshold of his base active skill, you have high weighted stats, and you can basically customize your team as you deem fit. So, all in all, Yogg is definitely a card worth owning if you have the resources or you get lucky. And let me know what you think about Yogg in the comments below. Do you think the 2-combo Master Race will arise from just 2-combo Yoggs? Do you think you're going to be heavily pursuing Yogg in the upcoming Godfest with 6x rates? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hopefully you all have a mantastic day, and happy puzzling.